these two quarterbacks. All right, two of the most tenured out of the three that have been here since year one. Right, we talked about who needs more legacy. Possibly how their season's gonna play out. So let's project the next 3 seasons. Right, who wins a championship first?
We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking now. Hit street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Base Coverage, presented to you by our partners over at Knoah Teamwear. I'm your host, Jamal Clay. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, drop a comment if you want to join in on the action, on the debate. I appreciate everyone joining in and talking some ELF ball. So today, as you can see by the title, we have an interesting one. There's only 3 OGs that have been here since year one of the ELF when it started during COVID, and we're talking about 2 of them in regards to legacy, championships, and things of that nature. So I'm excited to dive into that a little bit. And again, joining on the debate, drop a comment below and let's talk it out. Who we have joining us today? I got the guys over from the Cover 7 podcast from American International, Mr. Daniel McKenzie and Alex Malchow, coming in to talk a little bit about this debate, and I'm going to pick their brain a little bit and see what their thoughts are. So before we dive into all that, here's a quick word from our partners over at Knoah Teamwear. So welcome back, everyone. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. I have an interesting topic, a fun topic. I think it's a fair topic, a fair debate we're going to dive into a little bit today. Joining us in terms of the guests, I brought the fellas over from the Cover 7 podcast, Mr. Daniel McKenzie and Alex Malchow. Come chop it up a little bit and pick their brain in terms of, what we got going on. So with that being said, fellas, what's going on? How you guys doing?
Yeah, doing well. Thanks for having us again, Jamal. Always good to talk ELF football.
Most definitely. How you doing, Dan?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the season starting. We're rapidly approaching kickoff and 3rd season. A lot more new teams, a lot of new players. Exciting stuff.
Most definitely, and we're going to see a lot of the talent. Obviously, with teams growing, the talents are growing, and not only good American imports, but good domestic players that are going to be in this league that we're going to learn about heading into the season. But the topic for today, obviously, if you're reading the title, Zach Edwards versus Jadrian Clark, I think we have a fair debate, that we're going to talk about today. We're 3 seasons into the ELF. There's only 3 OGs left in terms of at the quarterback position that have been here since year one. We have Jadrian Clark, quarterback Ryan Fire, Zach Edwards, quarterback for the Paris Musketeers, no longer the Saints, and we got Jacob Sullivan, quarterback for the Frankfurt Galaxy. Out of those 3, Jacob is the only one that currently holds a ring. Got it year one in that epic championship game versus the Sea Devils. Now, when we go over to the other 2 guys, they've had success in their career, just as long as tenured as Jacob. But I kind of want to talk to you guys in terms of, those guys, their career thus far, their legacy and championships so far. So, let's just talk about, their careers right now. So Dan, I'll go to you on this one. What are your thoughts on Zach's career thus far? Obviously 2 seasons with Barcelona, now going to Paris next season. What are your thoughts on what he's accomplished thus far in the ELF?
Yeah, I think he's had an outstanding career. Of those 3 QBs, he has been the best statistically for 3 years in a row. Right. I think last year was his, without that, most successful season. He was snubbed for MVP, in my opinion. Played amazingly well, led his team to the playoffs. It helps you have Carl Sweet, but that wasn't the first time he's had a great connection with a receiver. I think Remy in his first year, and how he's connected with both again. I just think he's an amazing quarterback. He's dynamic. He's a dual threat. He's a great leader. He's a good person. I'm a big Zach Edwards fan, and I'm excited to see him play in Paris.
Most definitely, and obviously, stats speak for themselves. When we're talking about all-time passing leader within, the first 2 seasons of the ELF, and he's been able to accomplish quite a bit. Now we switch over to, the other guy, Jadrian Clark, right? First year with the Sea Devils, didn't get re-signed, in year 2, but came halfway through the season, signed with the Ryan Fire. So, Alex, I'll go to you on this one. What are your thoughts on Jadrian in terms of his career thus far in the ELF.
Yeah, I think Jadrian, even before the ELF, had a little bit of a knock on him that he couldn't win the big game, going back to German Football League days. And that kind of showed in the first year of the ELF, right? He was injured. He got Hamburg, and they just fell just short in the championship game. Then he was cast off from the league, essentially, and then brought back. But he came back came back with a chip on his shoulder. And the last half of the season, was the best quarterback in the ELF, in my opinion, including Edwards for the last 6 games. So I'm really excited to see what he does with a talented Rhine Fire team around him.
Yeah, I almost feel like we only got like a snippet of the year 2 Jadrian, right? Because we didn't see him halfway through the season, and then he got thrown into the fire, for lack of a better term, his first game. We're barely having any practice time. And then he obviously started building connections and stuff like that. Good to see in year 2 he's going to be back. But in terms of legacy, right? Obviously we mentioned it, Zach. Over 5,800 passing yards. I think it's 57 touchdowns to 21 interception ratio. He turned Barcelona around from year 1 to year 2, obviously making the playoffs before running into the buzzsaw of the Vienna Vikings, who then became the champs in year 2. And then we think about Jadrian, someone who led the Sea Devils to the championship in year 1, actually beating Frankfurt week 1 in a pretty good matchup. And the Sea Devils don't even bring him back, and they decide to go a different route at the quarterback position. He re-signs with the Fire going into year 2. And year 3, obviously heading to this year, the ELF. And yes, there has been that knock on Jadrian in terms of Europe media, ELF media, that he can't win the big game, essentially. So when we talk about like legacy, right, and we talk about like championships, whether it's this year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, who do you guys feel needs the championship more? You think it would be Jadrian that needs it more, or Zach that needs it more based on legacy? Alex, I'll go to you on that one.
Oh, definitely Jadrian. He's been on the scene, a longer time than Zach in Europe. Jadrian, I believe he lost the German Bowl title with the Unicorns. I know he was with the Lions, New York Lions, and they made a run at it. Didn't end up winning it. So he's been right there 3 times now. It's almost like a Buffalo Bills situation for him. He's been right at the title. It's just hasn't happened for him. So I know he's back for a reason in Dusseldorf. So this is his year to get it, is how it's lining up. So pressure's on for sure.
Dan, what do you think about that? Agree or disagree?
I agree. Yeah, I think Zach has probably got a brighter future. I think he's the kind of new kid on the block. I mean, he's only been in Europe 3 years now, always in Spain, first year out of Spain. And the sky's the limit for him. Whereas Jadrian, as Alex said, he's played in for other teams and he's struggled. Not struggled, but he hasn't been able to win the big game. Just to go back on last season and the back end of the season, and he did play really well. Like, everyone knows that. But if you look at who he played against, they weren't the best teams, right? He played against the Rams, Cologne, Leipzig. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like he was like killing any, like, it wasn't giant slaying out there.
Yeah.
But I do think he's a good quarterback. But I think, as Alex said as well, he has an unbelievably stacked roster this year, arguably the best roster in the league. And so I think it is his to lose right now, and a great coach, obviously, in Jim Tomsula. So yeah, I think it's his to lose. And if he loses this one, he doesn't do well this year, I don't know, maybe he's a write-off.
So you're basically saying, or you would say that if one is this year's, it's the Fire's championship to lose, right?
100%. Yeah.
If he can't do it this year, let me ask you this. Let me rephrase this. Does your legacy have to be defined by a championship?
Yes. Unfortunately, okay. Yes. Unfortunately, yeah.
Obviously, it's not a lot of Dan Marinos in the world, and especially in Europe. Would you say that means more in Europe than like NFL or CFL?
I think stats mean less in Europe. In NFL, in college, in the States, like, it's stat driven, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, how many rotations the ball has when you throw it is, do you know what I mean, is recorded. Everything's recorded. whereas in Europe, it's just who won the championship.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Who was the quarterback who won the championship? That's all that matters. And how many championships has Jadrian won? Unfortunately, not many. And you can say the same about Zach as well. Zach hasn't won any either.
Yeah. That's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah, they're in the same boat there. However, I think, it is more essential that Jadrian wins this year because of what's happened in previous years. Whereas Zach, I feel like, you know what I mean, he could lose this year and he's still considered a really good quarterback.
Let me ask you this, because they do have a similarity, right? And I want to dive into X factors for a second. So one similarity that both these guys have is, they got good old Coach Tio, Andrew Weidinger, coaching them. Obviously, he coaches that. You saw the production and the success they had last year, and now he's going to be with the Ryan Fire taking the OC job, right? Do you think our good friend, Coach Tio can have the same success with Jadrian that he had with Zach in year 3 in the ELF? I'll go to you, Alex.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this guy, I think he was really creative. We remember the double pass, right? Kyle Sweet to Edwards was one of the most fun plays of the season. So I think Weidinger, a guy with his NFL and college experience, he's going to see the talent and maybe even the talent gap that he has between other teams in the ELF. And he's going to have fun with it because he wants to keep his guys interested and having fun. And that was one of the things that we loved about that Barcelona team he coached. Those guys were having fun out there. He's going to bring the same attitude to Ryan Fire, I think. And Jadrian Clark will be sort of the, orchestrating the symphony.
Dan, what do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, again, I'm not going to disagree. I think I've spoken to Zach a few times about Weidinger, and he said that his number one priority is taking advantage of matchups, right? Key matchups. Who and in Barcelona it was obviously Kyle Sweet. It was like, where is Kyle Sweet on the field? Who is he matched up against? Is this favorable for us? So I think a lot of it's going to go down to personnel and who the Ryan Fire have to take advantage of. And because they have such a stacked roster, I feel like there's far more opportunities now. Where in Barcelona, you had some good receivers, but Kyle Sweet was the guy. Do you know what I mean? Where in Ryan Fire now, there are more opportunities. You know what I mean? And there are more opportunities to excel on those one-on-one, man-to-man matchups, especially with Glenn Tunga coming in as well now. Do you know what I mean? It just opens the whole thing. So yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting. I think we're going to see a lot of a high number offense, high scoring offense. Looking forward to it.
I'm glad you mentioned Glenn for this reason. We're diving into X factors, right? And 2 X factors that these guys didn't have. One, Jadrian has Glenn Tunga, right? And Zach in Paris has a tight end in Andre Botella Moreno. Guys that, Ryan didn't necessarily have like a run game, or, adding someone like Glenn, they didn't have that type of run factor. And, Barcelona probably doesn't even know. Barcelona last year probably didn't even know who the tight end was because everything was going to Sweet Plu or Flores. But now those guys have, some dudes at those positions. But last year, Barcelona didn't really utilize the run game, whether they couldn't, they didn't have to, or that just wasn't their philosophy. So, now that the Fire and Andrew Weidinger has Glenn to help Jadrian, and now that Zach has someone like an Andre Botella Moreno, someone who could be a mismatch at the tight end position, who do you think is going to do more for their quarterback?
Undoubtedly Glenn, right? Undoubtedly Glenn. Look what he did last year. I mean, Hamburg had a disgusting offensive line, right? They were bullies. They just bullied everyone over the field, and it allowed Glenn to do so much. And he was doing so much by himself as well, so it was a great combination. But when you control the line of scrimmage like that, when you control the amount of passes that Jadrian's throwing and where he's throwing them, and it's a lot of play action, then it's just much easier for Jadrian to just succeed there. Whereas a tight end is, do you know what I mean? There's so much you can do, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Glenn's going to have a far bigger impact on the game and make Jadrian's job much easier. So I think, without a doubt, Glenn.
I think Botella Moreno might help Paris is in the red zone. Like we saw him last year. He's really tall. He can make contested catches. And Sweet can be sort of their open field possession guy. And then when they get down the field, look for Moreno to maybe a fantasy pick, if you want to say. He's going to score some touchdowns for sure.
let me ask you this on that Glenn situation. I'm curious how much. Obviously, we gotta wait for Glenn to get back from suspension with everything going on. But I'm curious how much Andrew is going to utilize the run game now that he has someone like Glenn. Because Jim Tonsula, obviously, his reputation, obviously from going back to being the 49ers coaches, yeah, run the ball. I think he was a former offensive line coach as well. Andrew, not saying he didn't run the ball, but we just didn't see that in Barcelona. So I'm curious how he's going to utilize Glenn. If I know for a fact Glenn won't get as much touches this year as he did last year in Hamburg, so he'll be fresher. But I'm just curious how he's going to utilize Glenn. And same for Paris. Like, yeah, you have Kyle Sweet. You also have Remy. Almost a similar situation with Barcelona in terms of, it seems like they're going to be pass oriented, but we'll just have to wait and see. But I think, Andrea is someone that could take a lot of pressure off Remy, off Kyle, and possibly be a big mismatch. So I'm just curious to see how those guys are going to be utilized in their offenses going into year 3 in the ELF.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think, funnily enough, Mark Mettioli for Paris is the more creative coach. If you watch him in Italy, he was
really?
using players all over. Yeah, he was using players.
I haven't done my homework on my man yet, so I got to look into him.
Again, I'm a big fan. He was a Parma guy, and he was so creative on that team. He just used players in all sorts of different positions all the time. And yeah, he thought outside the box a lot. Whereas Whiting, like you said, maybe not so much, and he is more pass focused. However, you wouldn't go after arguably one of the MVP candidates last year in running back, pay him, I'm sure, a lot of money. I don't know the details of his contract, but I'm sure a lot of money, as well as facing a 5-6, I can't remember how many games suspension he's facing, right? Like, you wouldn't do all that if you weren't going to run the ball. Like, it just seemed a complete waste of time. And also, is the first game back for him Hamburg?
I think so.
I think it's Hamburg, right? Like, do you know what I mean? It's set up for him to have a breakout game and do something amazing. So I get your point totally. And it's a good one. But I do think you wouldn't go through all that effort not to run the ball a lot.
Yeah, and I'm already based on what you're saying, I'm already hammering the over week 3 when the Fire played Paris. So with two creative coaches on the line. These two quarterbacks. But hey, all right. Two of the most tenured out of the 3 that have been here since year 1, right? We talked about who needs more legacy, possibly how their season's gonna play out. So let's project the next 3 seasons, right? Who wins a championship first out of these 2 quarterbacks? Is it Zach or is it Jadrian? Alex, I'll go to you.
I'll go Jadrian.
Is this the year? Is this the year for it?
You know what I'm gonna say? Yeah, it's the year.
Oh!
It's the year. He's been there. He's been so close.
Prediction.
He gets over the hump this year. Stamp it now.
Jadrian Clark wins it first. What about you, Dan?
I'm sorry, but I don't think he does it. I think it's
the big game curse comes back to haunt him again.
I know, yeah. I think it's his to lose. I think it's the Fire's to lose, rather. But yeah, I think they have an amazing regular season and fall short either in the championship game or in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I don't think they have championship experience on the team. They have
Fire.
I don't know. Do you know what I mean? It's like Jadrian Clark, Glenn Tonga, both amazing players, both lost championship games. I don't know. I'm not trying to be harsh, but I don't know.
No, listen, you're spitting the facts. It's going to be interesting, and I think one of the most interesting parts that the ELF did is that the 3 OGs, obviously Jacob Sullivan, Zach Edwards, Jadrian Clark, are all in the same division. So they're gonna battle it out. We're gonna see them twice a year. We're gonna see those matchups. It's gonna be a lot of fun to see how everything plays out. Obviously, we're talking about Zach and Jadrian now with Paris and the Fire, but to get off topic a little bit, it kind of feels similar to last year where like people are just counting out the Vikings, the little Vikings in Vienna, So it's gonna be interesting how everything plays out. I'm excited for the season. Definitely appreciate you guys coming on. Plug your podcast. Where can they find you? Where can they follow Cover 7 at?
Check us out, AFI Review. our articles, our podcast. We got stuff coming out every week. You want to learn more about your favorite team? Check out our State of the Franchise series every week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, hey, fellas, I appreciate you guys coming on. Obviously, this is, the second time we've done this. Obviously, last year, heading into the championship game, we spoke a little bit. This won't be the last time we do this. All right, we'll talk again soon, but I appreciate you guys. And like I always say, man, this won't be the last time we try to